I've had a privilege to play for him and coach with him. He imparted in me a desire to be a servant leader, not only as a family man now, as a player, as a coach, and in ministry. And I'm very blessed to call him a friend. Thank you, Coach, for being here. Nino Giarratano.
What a pleasure for me to have coached Rigo. Two-way street where you can help somebody and someone helps you better yourself. I think you really find that magic. I've been really fortunate. You know, when Coach Clifford was up here speaking,
his story is a wonderful story of how he found his faith and what he's gone through. Mine is a different piece of that. I've been really fortunate my whole life. I have two Christian parents that love me every single day. I've been a Christian ever since the day that I could remember, and I've had that love and that support every single day. So when he was speaking today, it was like, well, it can happen from any direction. It can happen from any direction. The first direction you look at, and
the stories that he was telling, I could envision everything. I could envision the story of what he was like. I could see the speed, I could see the intensity, I could see the competitiveness. The one thing I couldn't picture, and maybe you were the same way, when he talking about Clay being the man, I walked into the room and Clay was speaking, and I was like, wow, that guy is in great shape. Look at what that man looks like. Look at the poise and the confidence. I can see it. I can see it in there. When Rigo gets up here and introduces me, wow, what a power. Almost like a parent. Seeing one of your kids as an athlete, now as a father, and now as a mentor to so many people. So I can connect that. The last piece, I was coming in this morning, I called him up, I still have my mother with me. She's 83 years old. I called Mom and I said, hey Mom, just to make sure that everything is good. And she's like, wow, early this morning, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm driving to San Jose, to Stanford, to speak at a Fellowship of Christian Athletes coaches convention. Rigo asked me to come up and speak this morning, and this is what Mom said. She said, wow, you get to do really nice things when you get to be important like yourself. And I was on the other end of the phone, and when I hung up with her, that kind of resonated in the back of my mind, and I was like, wow, how lucky am I that she's still building my self-esteem as a grown man. And I was like, wow, my life. How lucky am I to have that influence? And then Rigo talked about me, so it's great when people say nice things about you. What are we here today to do? Well, let's talk a little bit about coaching. How can we become better coaches? How can we help students? How can we help athletes? How can we help people? And some of this that you're going to see today in the first 15, 20 minutes is geared towards baseball. I think it's geared towards everyone. I think you could look at any sport at any time. You can look at any competition, whether you're competing in life or what you're competing at, and you can put this together. So I made this presentation to the American Baseball Coaches Association in Dallas about 3-4 weeks ago. There were about 4,500 baseball coaches in a room, and it was on a bucket list of mine to make the presentation. And it was a different presentation where it connected the mental and the physical aspects of the sport. And I think that's exactly what all of you are doing in here. You're trying to connect your mental piece, which is your Christianity, and you're trying to put that into sports and have kids understand that, so that in life it takes them to where they want to go to. Does anybody in here know what separates the very best from fourth place? So we're talking about Olympic gold to 4th place. Does anybody know the percentage? And I'll take any guesses at this point. Does anybody know the percentage? Well, here, I'll help you with it. As you're thinking through your mind, 2.5% separates the gold medal winner
And the person that finishes fourth that doesn't get the recognition. It's like Coach Clifford was talking about. You run the race, you run that race, and run it like you're going to win it. Not only one person gets to win the gold. Then there's the silver, then there's the bronze, and then there's the people that you don't even recognize. 2.5%. Just think in this room if we could make a 1% increase in the student athletes that we touch every day. We're talking about moving them from 4th place to 3rd place. Just think if we can make a 2% increase in how they see their life and how they live their life and how they go about their life. We're talking about moving them into the silver. And if we can make that other 0.5% increase, we're talking about moving them into the gold category. We're talking about they living their life in the gold category. Can we do that? 2.5%.
So some days when you're sitting there and you're working and you're toiling away, and these 10 characteristics that are up behind me on the board that I think are the most important characteristics of any athlete or any person that you can talk about. This comes from a book called Talent is Overrated by Mr. Colvin. He writes this book and he talks about these are the characteristics that separate the elite level athletes. And if you can see, it's kind of tough to see it from where you're at.
But on the left-hand side, we're talking about relaxation, handling stress, imagery, self-esteem, concentration, positive attitude, rhythm, dealing with failure, persistence, and anticipation.
We connect those with something that is physical from a hitting standpoint. But for today, I think it's really important that we understand these are the 10 characteristics that us as coaches should focus on. And I'm sure that there are other pieces for you, but in the simplest form, we always think, well, I need to be great at teaching hitting. I need to be great at teaching the serve. I need to be great at teaching the swing and golf. I need to be great at teaching the mechanical pieces of the game. You don't.
You don't. What you need to be great at is teaching them these 10 characteristics that they have to deal with every day. In your book, in the coach's Bible that you have, I guarantee you, those 10 characteristics are in there, and they're in there very well. And you can find a verse every day that deals with handling stress, relaxation, positive outlook, their self-image, their self-imagery. I know you can find that every single day in there, and so we look for it. And I look for it every day. When I first started as a coach, it was like, I want to win. I want to win. I want to get a new job. I want to get a bigger job. I want to be a bigger son. I want to build a better house. I want to provide for my family. I want to be successful. I want to be the most successful coach there is in the country. And somewhere around year 10 in my coaching career, I figured out all I really want to do is coach. Somewhere in there, the winning was part of it. I love to compete. Please don't get me wrong. Competition is the most important piece. But there is a piece where you find out all I want to do is coach.
All I want to do is make a difference. All I want to do is touch people. All I want to do is help people get better. That's all I really want to do. And the more fortunate I've been towards success, the more fortunate I've been to coach at a higher level. And as Coach Clifford said, the newspapers, the video that I saw today, when I watched the video, the second time I've seen the video, I'm like, wow, that's really me. That's really me in the video. They really captured something in that video that might help coaches teach. Because you know, you as people, you're thinking, well, I wonder what are those conversations that happen at the mound when the manager goes out there in baseball and you see him walking out there. You wonder what they're talking about. Well, I'm mic'd up there today and I said, well, you got to be patient. Wow, patient was the word I used when I got to the mound. I don't know how I did it, but it was something that I said. Maybe it's these 10 words where I try to live by those 10 words in my culture of how I coach players and what we do. Win or lose. So when we talk about relaxation, here's how to breathe. How important is it to teach how to breathe? And it's like the inhale and the exhale. That's the relaxation that I'm talking about. So many days I talk about that. My daughter is 22 years old. She'll be 23 in March. She graduated from the University of San Francisco with an international business degree. She's Spanish-speaking minor. She studied her whole life. The other day she was going for an interview with Nike, and she said, "Dad, I'm going to interview. Can we have this mock interview in your office?" And I'm like, "Well, this is coaching for me. Here's my own daughter wanting to be coached on how to interview in a job." First thing I talked about, I said, when they ask you a question, make sure you breathe in and make sure you breathe out. And as you breathe out, get your thoughts together as to how you want to answer the question. So when they ask you the question, don't just jump in and start answering the question like you might want them to answer that. And as I contemplated that, I was like, that's what I do every single day with my players. Well, when you go to the plate to hit, take a deep breath and breathe out. And find some relaxation in that breath. And can't we do that at every level with every single athlete? You don't have to have my 25 years of coaching baseball and seeing thousands of at-bats, swings, hits, successes or failures to understand how can we teach kids at a very young age to use their breath to relax. How do we teach that? Now, how do we teach that to our kids that are not responding correctly? Well, when you get angry and something's not going right for you and you want to respond to somebody, can you take a deep breath? And can you exhale? Now go ahead and exhale. And if you start to teach kids from a very young age, the time that they become adults, well, then they start to get like smarter and understand that, and they start to go through that. The second piece of it, and this is the tool. The art of wrestling the mind and the power of dismissing it from it all. Care and worry is probably one of the secret energies in our great men. We use this as a mental plan. And why I give you this, these are questions. When trying to find relaxation, what tools do you arm yourself with? And what do you use to return to the state when all hell is breaking loose? What is the zone to you? How does relaxation help you get in the zone? What are the triggers that try to force you into a state of tension? What tools do you use to combat it? Well, I put this in terms of hitting because that's who I present to, but I put this in terms of you as a coach. Let's find the triggers of our athletes. Let's find what triggers our athletes out of relaxation. Let's try to help them get into the zone. If that zone is their Christianity, if that zone is them as athletes, if that's the competitive zone, let's take our time and work towards that. And I know it's tough because, you know, even though I coach at the University of San Francisco, it's a Jesuit school, it's still always tough to put your faith in there because of your group that you're working with. You have to walk lightly in order to touch them. And so for me, I touch them with the mental game. I touch them with the mental game and understand that that mental game is really close to my faith. What are the triggers that take you down the wrong road? How do you get out of that? And now I have them answer these questions to me, and they put them in a file, and they go through all 10 words, and they go through this mental packet. And what I do is I have an opportunity to read and learn about them. What triggers you? What makes you angry? What doesn't help you relax? How do I help you to relax as a student athlete? How do I help you on the field and off the field from a relaxation standpoint? Here's handling stress. Boy, how do we get back into this moment? How do we get back into this moment in time? And that's how I connect handling stress. That's our biggest thing when working with athletes. How do they handle stress? What kind of stress? What are their stressors? Is it like Coach Clifford's? Is it the home life? Is it something else where they're trying to attain greatness? Is it their ego? What's holding them back? How do I get them into this moment? We have a culture at USF where we talk about this moment, this opportunity, this action path. Here in this moment, not too far ahead, not too far behind. How do we get you right here in this moment? Let me move on. Here's some more questions. This is handling stress. I mean, what triggers stress and anxiety? How do you prevent stress? How do you combat stress? Is it different on the field versus off the field? If we don't spend time asking those questions to our athletes, we're going to have a hard time. Describe the physical and mental routines you used in the past to relieve anxiety. What do you read? What is your mantra? What do you say to yourself over and over to handle the stress that you have? Imagery. I like the picture. Ball play. I mean, how do you see yourself? How do you see yourself? Let me go, I want to show you this video because I know we're working off of, is that we can give them is what's important. And that's where the FCA comes in. That's where the faith comes in. That's where we need to understand that in that perspective, we need to give them options. And if we give them options to understand that, then the communication is open. I talk about mental training. So we talk about mom as the mental training coach or dad as the mental training coach. I don't want to offend anybody here. But here's mom. I play in my Little League games, and when I get in the car at the end of the game, here's mom's perspective of my game. Well, I really played great today. It was really great to watch you play. I really liked watching you. You had 3 hits. No, I didn't, Mom. You did. You had 3 hits. No, Mom. 1 went back to the catcher. Well, that was a hit in my book. No, Mom, that was a strikeout. Well, good job. And the one that you hit to the pitcher that he missed, that he overthrew the first baseman, and you ran from first to second, second to third, and third to home, that was a great home run. Here's Dad sitting in the other seat. Nice job today. 2 hits. Those other 2 at-bats, let's talk about those 2 at-bats. Let's talk about the strikeout. Why were you not competing enough? Why didn't you see the ball? Why weren't you breaking the pitch? Why were you messing around in the dugout with your friends? Why? Why were you messing around? Why didn't you take the extra space on ball and dirt? Well, maybe that's not the case all the time with mom versus dad. But that's the perspective there with mom in the classroom, and sometimes dad. There's this competitive edge. Right? There's this other perspective of someone that just sees it as, wow, you're having fun, and I see the big picture. There's this other competitive edge, I want you to be great. We have to somehow figure out how do we match those 2. How do we match those 2 to make that 2.5% increase? How do we as coaches, and that's my goal as a coach all the time, how do I teach? How do I teach? Do I teach more like mom or like dad? How do I teach? What are my moments? How do I teach them to breathe? How do I teach them to relax? How do I help them with their self-imagery? How do I help them with their patience? How do I help them to handle stress? Because eventually what I really want them to do when sports is over and they go out into the real world and they become parents and they become workers out in the real world, because only 1% of my athletes, 0.5% of my athletes are going to compete in sports at the highest level their entire life. The rest is going to be about life. So me as a coach, when I look at you and I look at those 10 characteristics, how do you settle in on those 10 characteristics? How do you settle in on those? How do you teach those so that 15 years down the road, you're like me and Rigo's introducing you and you're like, wow, I'm glad I spent time on those pieces of information and not just on catching a ball and throwing a ball. I'm glad there's a broader perspective to that. Now how do I teach? Now how do I teach failure? Now how am I firm enough? How am I firm enough and understand enough? How do I separate between everything's great with mom and nothing's good enough with dad sometimes? And that's not the story of my life. But I like to put that perspective in there because when you look at that, That's basically what we are as role models. We're an extension of mom and dad. And how do we teach? How do we teach? How do we get to that point? Self-esteem. It ain't what they call you, it's what you answer to.
Simple quote I use every day with my players. It's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. If you want to answer to something great, you got to wait to answer to that. If you answer to something negative, then that's exactly where it's going to be. Is your self-esteem formed from the outside in or the inside out? What, if anything, do you do on a regular basis to affirm your self-esteem? Has there been a defining moment in recent history that has affected your self-esteem in a positive or negative manner? What can we as coaches do to help evaluate your self-esteem? If you're not willing to ask that question, if you don't get the responses from your student athletes at whatever level from your kids, what can we do to help with that self-esteem? I coach my son right now. He's a freshman at the University of San Francisco. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later,
Maybe in the question and answer, but boy, what a great opportunity for me to coach my own son at the highest level, which is the level that I'm at the collegiate level. Go back to Coach Clifford talking about, hey, I was an All-American at a Division III school, not a very important feat, he said. And to me, it was like, that's greatness. That's greatness. You are where you are, and you're great at where you are. That's all I'm looking for. You want to be an All-American in high school at the smallest high school in America, you're an All-American at the smallest high school in America. That's greatness. That's greatness. You want to be a good parent? That's greatness. You want to be a good person? That's greatness. You want to pick yourself up after you fail? In my book, that's greatness.
That's what I teach. That's what I teach every day. I'll get back to my son, but I want to tell you one quick story about a kid by the name of Jason Mahood. We're getting close. But Jason Mahood was a 4-year player from the University of San Francisco. What a wonderful kid. What a wonderful worker. He was the only player that I've coached as a position player that's played in 2 NCAA regional tournaments in a matter of his 4-year career. So greatness for that. He's been testing greatness. But what made Jason so great is early in his career, he was like a kid in the back of the car. When he struggled, his breathing went like that. Later in his career, when he made a mistake, before he got to me in the dugout, and this is me in the dugout, he would walk and he wouldn't come real close to me because that interaction would be like, oh, right? Before he got to me, he went. And when I saw the exhale in his breath, I never said another word to him. Because basically what I knew is that he was going to be ready for the next opportunity. The next play, the next moment, the next opportunity for himself, he was going to be ready. As a young player, he was trying to get there, but he couldn't get there. As a veteran player, every time I saw him breathe, basically what I try to do now when I teach my players is I try to teach them how to fail. You want to fail? Take a big deep breath. And you're like, wow, here's this college coach that has these wins and has all these high players and all these things that people are talking about, and he talks about the simplest form, breathing. That's how simple it gets for me. Do I understand the mechanical parts of the game? Sure I do. But we have to find out, how do we teach people to understand that? The greatest gift you can give yourself every day is to take 2 deep breaths. I want you to close your eyes right now. And I want you to breathe in. And I want you to breathe out. Second time, I want you to breathe in and take 5 seconds on the out breath. Breathe in. Breathe out. Very good. Open your eyes. Talk about how good does that feel? You gave yourself a break. You gave yourself a 7-second break right there. You're ready for the next moment. You're ready for the next opportunity. If we could teach our kids how to do that,
They're ready for the next opportunity, because what I talk about, when you talk about the mental game, and you talk about the physical game, and you talk about the spiritual game, are you ready for this opportunity? Great. Now, are you tough enough? Are you tough enough mentally, physically, and spiritually to get ready for the next moment? Or are you missing those moments? And so when we talk in baseball terms, are you ready for this pitch? Now, can you get ready for the next pitch when that pitch is over? Can you take that swing? Can you get ready for the next swing when that swing is over? Can you catch that ground ball or miss it and be ready for the next opportunity? And I think that's what we have to do as coaches when we teach these 10 characteristics. Can we get them ready? Point after point after point. Let me kind of skip through this a little bit, because this presentation is a little longer than 20. Can we teach him a better way? Can we teach him a better way? And that's the point that I'm trying to get at. There'll be failure like that, and he'll say, well, Coach said it was okay. We are in a powerful position to change lives,
To touch people, to make a difference in their lives. We are in a wonderful position to coach kids at every level. Whether they're young kids, whether they're older kids, whether they're kids that are trying to be professional athletes, whether they're just regular athletes that are trying to just enjoy what they're doing.
we are in a perfect situation that everything we say will resonate at some point in time. And so if we want to teach the faith, we teach the faith. And if it holds, it holds. But if we want to teach the life, we teach the life. It's going to hold. But at some point in time, each one of those athletes, whether they succeed or fail, they're going to come back to this point where they're going to need these skills, and everything that you say, everything that comes from you, everything you live, however you act, however you show that, they're going to see it. They're going to see it. Even the kids that fail for me, the kids that I cut, the kids that I say, well, you're not committed, and I have to move on because I'm looking for greatness, and if you don't want to be great at something, I have to move on and find someone that wants to be great, because my family depends on it, and so does everybody else. That's the level I coach at. The level you coach at maybe different, maybe exactly the same.
So we have to figure out that even those kids are going to hear exactly what we say. So getting back to my son, and Rigo's going to come up and ask some questions. Come on up, Rigo. Yeah.